Do you know which country opened the world to 3/4 of the planet, built one of the first global empires, controlled trade routes across oceans, and then somehow became a small, quiet country on the edge of Europe? That country is Portugal, a small state, pressed against the Atlantic Ocean, sitting at the far western edge of the continent, looking almost modest on the map, but once powerful enough to change the direction of world history. Today, Portugal is no longer the empire that sent ships to Africa, India, Brazil, China, and Japan. It does not rule oceans anymore. It does not dominate global trade. It is not the richest country in Western Europe. And yet, somehow, Portugal has become one of the most desired places on Earth. Americans move there. Europeans move there. Remote workers move there. Retirees move there. People from Brazil, Ukraine, India, Britain, Germany, France, Canada, and the United States all look at Portugal and think the same thing. Maybe this is the place. Warm weather, ocean views, old streets, cheap wine, beautiful beaches, friendly people. Low crime, slower life, access to Europe. It sounds almost perfect, but is Portugal really the dream country people imagine, or is it one of those places that looks amazing from far away, but becomes much more complicated once you actually try to live there? Because Portugal has two faces. One is the postcard, Lisbon at sunset. Yellow trams, tiled buildings, seafood, castles, cliffs, beaches, and the Atlantic stretching endlessly into the horizon. The other is the real country, low salaries, expensive housing, slow bureaucracy, cold apartments in winter, overloaded health care, young people leaving, and locals struggling to afford the cities foreigners are falling in love with. And that is what makes Portugal so interesting. It is beautiful, safe, emotional, historic, and full of life, but it is not easy. So today, we're going to look at the real Portugal. Why tourists and immigrants are obsessed with it, how the economy actually works, why so many people want to move there, and what problems almost nobody tells you about before you arrive. Because Portugal is not just beaches and pastel de nata. Portugal is a country that once conquered the world, and now the world is moving into Portugal. People around the world started looking for exactly that. A place with European stability, but not Northern European weather. A place with Western safety, but not Swiss prices. A place with history, but also Wi-Fi and coffee shops. A place where you can live slower without feeling completely disconnected. Portugal fit the fantasy almost perfectly. Especially Lisbon. Lisbon became one of the most attractive cities in Europe for foreigners. Old neighborhoods, hills, viewpoints, trams, tiles, Atlantic light, nightlife, cafes, co-working spaces, startup culture, and relatively lower costs compared with places like London, Paris, Amsterdam, or San Francisco for digital nomads. It felt like a cheat code for retirees. It felt like a gentle landing for Americans tired of healthcare costs, car dependence, and burnout. Portugal looked like a softer version of life. For Europeans from colder countries, it offered sun, ocean, and lower prices, but here is the problem. When the world discovers your affordable paradise, it does not stay affordable for long. Portugal's economy is complicated. On paper, it is a developed European country. It has modern infrastructure, good safety, strong tourism, renewable energy ambitions, a growing tech scene, and access to the European Union, but salaries are low. Very low by Western European standards. The minimum wage is modest. The average salary is much lower than in Germany, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, or the United States. Many Portuguese workers earn amounts that look almost impossible when compared with the cost of housing in Lisbon or Porto. This is the central tension of modern Portugal. It is cheap for foreigners with foreign income, but expensive for locals with Portuguese income. That one sentence explains a huge part of the country's current crisis. A remote worker from California, New York, London, Berlin, Or Amsterdam may arrive in Lisbon and think prices are reasonable. A Portuguese teacher, nurse, waiter, designer, or young office worker may look at the same prices and feel trapped. Housing is the clearest example. Lisbon and Porto became extremely attractive to tourists, investors, expats, and short-term rentals. Foreign buyers and rental platforms pushed demand upward. Renovated apartments started targeting foreigners. Old neighborhoods changed quickly. In some areas, the local population was priced out. For a tourist, this can look like urban revival. For locals, it can feel like losing your own city. Rent in central Lisbon can easily consume a huge share of an average Portuguese salary. Many young people live with parents into their 30s not because they lack ambition, but because the math does not work. This is why Portugal's popularity has become both a blessing and a problem. Tourism brings money, foreigners bring investment, digital nomads bring spending. But too much outside demand can distort a small economy, and Portugal is small. That matters. The country has only about 10 million people. Lisbon and Porto are not giant megacities like New York, London, or Tokyo. When international money floods into limited housing markets, prices move fast. That is exactly what happened. Tourism is one of Portugal's biggest economic engines. Tens of millions of visitors come every year, far more than the country's population. They fill hotels, restaurants, beaches, museums, streets, rental apartments, and airports. Tourism creates jobs and supports businesses. But it also changes cities. In Lisbon, Porto, the Algarve, and Madeira, parts of local life are increasingly shaped around visitors. Restaurants adapt, housing adapts, shops adapt, neighborhoods adapt. The danger is that a real city becomes a stage set for people passing through. Portugal is trying to balance this, but it is not easy because the country needs tourism. It also needs locals to be able to live. That is the hard part. Outside tourism, Portugal has other strengths. It is one of the world leaders in cork production. It exports wine, olive oil, textiles, footwear, ceramics, paper products, machinery, and automotive components. It has an important services sector. It has growing technology and startup activity, especially around Lisbon. Portugal has also invested heavily in renewable energy. Wind, solar, hydropower, and other clean sources are important parts of the energy mix. For a country without the oil wealth of Norway or the industrial scale of Germany, this matters a lot. But despite these strengths, Portugal still faces a productivity problem. The economy is modern, but wages remain low. Many young Portuguese people study, become skilled, speak languages, and then leave for better salaries abroad. This brain drain is not new, but it remains painful. Imagine growing up in a beautiful country, loving the culture, food, language, and family life, but realizing you may earn much more in France, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, or the United Kingdom. That is a real choice many Portuguese people face. And it creates a strange situation. Foreigners move to Portugal for quality of life. Portuguese people leave Portugal for better wages. That contradiction is the heart of the country. Now let's talk about what Portugal actually feels like, because this is where the country becomes powerful. Portugal has an emotional atmosphere that is hard to explain until you experience it. It is not as loud as Spain, not as glamorous as France, not as polished as Switzerland, not as efficient as Germany. Portugal feels softer, older, more melancholic, more human. There is a Portuguese word people love to mention, saudade. It roughly means longing. Nostalgia, a soft sadness for something lost or distant. It is not just sadness. It is not depression. It is emotional memory. A beautiful ache. You hear it in fado music. You feel it in old streets. You see it in the way Portugal looks at the sea, not as a beach decoration, but as something deep, dangerous, And historic, the ocean gave Portugal the world. It also took people away, families separated by migration, sailors leaving, colonies far away, young people moving abroad, cities full of old beauty and new uncertainty. That feeling runs through the country, and it makes Portugal different. From many other sunny destinations, Portugal is warm but not shallow, beautiful but not fake, relaxed but not empty. There is a soul there. That is why so many people fall in love with it. The geography helps. Portugal may be small, but it is surprisingly diverse. The north is greener, wetter, older, and more rugged. Porto has a completely different energy from Lisbon, darker, denser, more working class, more granite, more Atlantic. The Douro Valley is one of the most beautiful wine regions in Europe, with vineyards stepping down steep hillsides toward the river. Central Portugal has mountains, forests, university towns, villages, and a slower inland rhythm. Lisbon sits near the mouth of the Tagus River, bright and open, with Atlantic light and layered hills. The Alentejo is wide, dry, golden, and quiet. Fields, cork oaks, olive trees, whitewashed towns, and huge skies. The Algarve in the south is the tourist dream: cliffs, beaches, caves, resorts, golf courses, sunshine, and warm holiday energy. Then there are the islands. Madeira is green, dramatic, volcanic, and mountainous, sitting far out in the Atlantic. The Azores are even more remote, volcanic islands with lakes, cliffs, hot springs, pastures, and a feeling of being in another world. For such a small country, Portugal contains many different moods, and the climate is one of its biggest advantages. Portugal is one of the sunniest countries in Europe. Winters are mild compared with much of the continent. Summers are long and dry, especially in the south. This is a major reason people want to move there. But even the climate has a catch: the ocean is cold. Many people imagine Portugal as a warm beach country like Greece or southern Italy, but the Atlantic is not the Mediterranean. The water can be surprisingly cold even in summer. On the west coast, waves are strong, currents can be dangerous, and swimming is not always the gentle, warm experience people expect. Portugal's beaches are beautiful, but the ocean has teeth. That is why Portugal is famous for surfing. Places like Nazaré can produce some of the largest surfable waves on Earth. This is not a calm tropical coastline. It is the Atlantic, and it behaves like the Atlantic. Another surprise is winter indoors. Portugal may be sunny, but many homes are badly insulated. Central heating is not standard in many older apartments. In winter, it can be colder inside than foreigners expect. People arrive thinking they escaped winter, then find themselves wearing jackets indoors because the apartment is damp and freezing. This is one of the most underestimated problems in Portugal. The weather outside may be mild, the house may still feel cold. For Americans used to heating systems, insulation, and climate control, this can be shocking. Now let's talk about people. Portuguese people are often described as kind, polite, calm, and welcoming. In general, that reputation is deserved. Compared with many European cultures, Portugal can feel emotionally gentle. People are not usually aggressive. They are not constantly trying to dominate conversations. They are often patient with foreigners, especially if you make even a small effort to speak Portuguese. This matters in some countries. Foreigners feel like intruders forever. In Portugal, many people feel accepted more easily, but again, do not confuse kindness with instant integration. Portuguese society can be warm, but real belonging takes time. Family networks are strong. Friendships may be deep, but not always easy to enter. If you only stay in expat circles, co-working spaces, and English-speaking bubbles, you can live in Portugal for years without truly understanding Portugal. That is one of the dangers. Portugal is easy to consume, harder to join. The language is a big part of that. Many young Portuguese people speak English well, especially in Lisbon, Porto, and tourist areas. But Portuguese is essential if you want a real life there. Paperwork, local jobs, neighbors, schools, health care, friendships, and deeper cultural understanding, and Portuguese is not Spanish. That mistake annoys people. The languages are related, but Portuguese has its own sound, rhythm, grammar, and identity. If you move there and assume Spanish is close enough, you are starting badly for Americans. Portugal can feel accessible because English is common in many places. But if you want respect and integration, learn Portuguese. Even badly, the effort matters. Now, why do so many people want to move there? The answer is simple. Portugal offers a package that is hard to find. It is safe. It is in the European Union. It has good weather. It has the ocean. It has beautiful cities. It has a relaxed lifestyle. It is cheaper than many Western European countries. It has decent health care. It is a path to residence and eventually citizenship. It feels less stressful than many places. For Americans especially, Portugal can feel like an escape from several pressures at once: healthcare anxiety, political tension, car dependency, burnout, expensive cities, and the feeling that life is always moving too fast. In Portugal, life appears slower. You can drink coffee outside, walk old streets, take trains, eat fresh fish, watch the sunset over the Atlantic, live in a place where violent crime is low and daily life feels calmer. That is powerful, but moving is not the same as vacation. That is where reality hits. If you move to Portugal with strong remote income, savings, or a foreign pension, your life can be excellent. If you move and depend entirely on local wages, the picture changes. Local salaries are low. Career growth can be limited. Bureaucracy can be exhausting. Housing in popular areas is expensive. Healthcare can involve long waits. Government offices can move slowly, and the job market may not reward ambition the way the United States does. This is not a country where most people get rich quickly. It is a country where people try to live well with less. That difference is huge. Portugal is not the best place for maximizing income. It may be a very good place for improving daily life, but only if your finances make sense. This is why so many digital nomads love it. They bring foreign income into a lower-cost country, but this also creates resentment because locals cannot compete with foreign salaries. A person earning American money in Lisbon and a local earning Portuguese money in Lisbon are not living in the same economy. They may sit in the same cafe, but financially, they are in different worlds. That is one of the uncomfortable truths of modern Portugal. Now let's talk about moving there legally. For non-European citizens, including Americans, Portugal has offered several attractive pathways: work visas, study visas, family reunification, entrepreneur routes, and visas for remote workers or people with passive income have all made Portugal popular. The D7 visa became especially famous among retirees and people with stable passive income. Digital nomad options attracted remote workers. Portugal's previous Golden Visa program brought in investors, although the real estate route was heavily changed because it helped fuel housing pressure. The country has not closed itself off, but it has become more careful, and the bureaucracy is one of the biggest complaints. Immigration appointments can be slow. Documents can take months. Government agencies may be overloaded. Rules may change. People often wait far longer than expected. Portugal teaches patience quickly. You may come for sunshine. You stay in line for paperwork. That is part of the experience. Healthcare is another mixed picture. Portugal has a public healthcare system, and it can be very good, especially for serious needs, but it is also under pressure. Waiting times for specialists can be long. Some people use private insurance to access faster care. Private health care is much more affordable than in the United States. but it still costs money. For Americans, almost any European healthcare system can feel like a relief compared with U.S. medical bills, but that does not mean Portugal's system is perfect. Doctors are overloaded. Some hospitals are stressed, staff shortages happen, and if you do not speak Portuguese, navigating the system can be harder. Safety is one of Portugal's strongest advantages. Portugal is widely regarded as one of the safest countries in the world. Violent crime is low. Gun violence is rare. Tourists generally feel comfortable walking in Lisbon, Porto, and other cities. Women often report feeling safer there than in many other countries. For Americans, this can be one of the biggest lifestyle changes. The background tension is lower. You are not constantly thinking about danger in the same way, but safety does not mean nothing ever happens. Pickpocketing is common in tourist zones, especially in crowded parts of Lisbon, on trams, near viewpoints, and in busy transport areas. The famous tram 28 is beautiful, but it is also a perfect place for thieves. In Porto and the Algarve, tourist areas can also attract petty crime. The rule is simple: Portugal is safe. But do not be stupid. Keep your phone and wallet secure. Do not leave things on the beach unattended. Use common sense in nightlife areas and watch for restaurant or taxi tricks in tourist zones. Portugal is not dangerous. It is just popular, and popular places attract opportunists. There are also natural risks. Summer wildfires are serious. Heat, drought, forests, and wind can create dangerous conditions. Some inland areas are vulnerable during fire season. The ocean can be dangerous because of currents and waves. And Portugal has seismic risk, especially around Lisbon, where the memory of the catastrophic 1755 earthquake still matters historically. Most visitors will never face these issues directly, but they are part of the country. Portugal is not fragile, but it is not risk-free. Now let's talk about the biggest negatives honestly. First, wages. Portugal's salaries are low for Western Europe. This affects everything. It affects housing, savings, family formation, young people, pensions, and quality of life. If you come from the United States with remote income, Portugal feels affordable. If you work a normal Portuguese job, it may feel extremely tight. Second, housing. This is the crisis everyone feels. In Lisbon and Porto, rent has risen far beyond what many locals can afford. Foreign demand, tourism, short-term rentals, investment, and limited supply all made the problem worse. For young Portuguese people, housing can feel like a locked door. Third, bureaucracy. Portugal can be slow, very slow. Appointments, documents, residency processes, tax numbers, banking, government offices, it can all test your patience. The country has modernized, but many systems still feel heavy. Fourth, cold homes. This sounds small until you live it. Poor insulation, damp walls, lack of heating, and winter humidity can make apartments uncomfortable. Portugal is sunny, but many homes were not built for comfort in winter. Fifth, public services under pressure. Health care, transport, immigration offices, schools. In some areas, systems can be strained, especially where population growth and foreign arrivals are concentrated. Sixth, dependence on tourism and foreign money. Tourism brings wealth, but it can also make the economy vulnerable. If too much of a city depends on tourists, then local life becomes unstable. Portugal has to avoid becoming a country where foreigners enjoy the best parts while locals carry the pressure. That is the danger, but even with all of that, Portugal remains deeply attractive because the positives are real too. The beauty is real. The safety is real. The food is real. The ocean is real. The kindness is real. The slower rhythm is real. The feeling of sitting near the water in Lisbon, watching the light hit the buildings, eating something simple and good, hearing Portuguese around you, and feeling the day soften, that is real. Portugal has a way of making life feel less aggressive. Not easier, less aggressive. That is why people keep coming. In many wealthy countries, life can feel efficient but cold, productive but exhausting, rich but lonely. Portugal offers something different, imperfection with warmth. It is not the richest country, not the most organized, not the fastest, not the most powerful, but it has atmosphere, and atmosphere matters more than people admit. A country is not only GDP, it is how your nervous system feels while living there. Portugal feels good to many people. That is its secret power. But if you are thinking about moving there, you need to be honest with yourself. Do not move only because of Instagram. Do not move only because someone told you it is cheap. Do not move without checking rent. Do not assume local salaries will support the lifestyle you imagined. Do not think vacation energy equals real life, and do not arrive expecting Portugal to solve all your problems. Portugal can give you beauty, safety, climate, community, and a different pace. But you still need money, patience, paperwork, language effort, and realistic expectations for tourists. Portugal is almost impossible not to love. For immigrants, it is more complicated. For locals, it is home, and increasingly, a home they are fighting to afford. That is the real story. Portugal is not perfect, but it is alive. And that is why people keep talking about it. Moving there, leaving, returning, complaining, falling in love, and trying again, because Portugal is not a fantasy. It is a beautiful contradiction, a poor country by Western European standards that feels rich. In daily life, a place locals leave for better salaries while foreigners arrive for better peace. A country that millions of people dream about, and now must decide what to do with a world that has discovered it. If you found this story useful, like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories ahead about countries that look simple from far away but become much more interesting once you look closer. See you next time.